Yes, you can start now.
Okay, great. Um, so as I mentioned, one of the chapters I'm quite interested in, as well as Nigeria, is looking at how Pentecostalism is really big in diaspora communities and different people, going to plant churches in different parts of the world. So I'm quite interested in how a Nigerian man wound up planting such a successful church in Kiev.
How the Pentecostal movement is in Kiev?
How you went from Nigeria to plant a successful church in Kiev.
Well, I didn't plan to do that initially. I was a young man growing up in Africa and, trying to make a living because, like most people in my country, most people in Africa, I couldn't afford to pay for my university education. So I was struggling to go to the university, even though I had an admission to go there to a university there in Africa, and then I applied for a scholarship. So one of the scholarships was to take me to Columbia University, but some of my pastors advised me that don't go to America as a young man, 19-year-old, that there is a lot of temptation there. So then the other scholarship was for to go to Soviet Union, and
Okay.
I got a scholarship from the Soviet Union. And funny enough, it was the Communist Party of the Soviet Union that gave me the scholarship. But it was later on that I discovered that the whole idea was to get young African people to come to Russia and be indoctrinated with communism or by communism, and so that they could go back to Africa and do socialist and communist revolution. So I fell into that number of young people that were being recruited for ideological education. So, but then, lucky enough for me, or maybe I think that's absolutely the will of God, I guess, is that I got saved. I got to
Mm.
become a Christian 6 months before that scholarship came.
Oh
So,
wow.
and the 6 months in Christianity and Nigerian Christianity was good enough for me to be indoctrinated in God, and enough to be able to make a difference here in Russia. So
Great.
I got the scholarship. I came in here only 6 months as a Christian, and of course things were very different from what it was in Africa. And I discovered that on Sundays they were going to stroll to have a walk with their dogs in the park. And then I asked, what about churches? Don't you go to church on Sundays? Then they
Mm.
told me that no, you don't go to church. You go to church. Our churches are like museums. So you could go there to have a look at like a museum. And that was
Yeah.
when I felt very challenged, and I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to start. I cannot imagine a Sunday without me going to pray to God. So I said, I'm going to gather my fellow students to pray. So that was the beginning of my activities. But then immediately got cautioned, and I discovered that it's even illegal for me to gather people to pray to God or to read the Bible, because the few days later, we had the head of the Communist Party in the dormitory where I was living, and my one of my professors came and saw the picture of Jesus. Somebody had reported to them that I had the picture of Jesus in my room, and then they came in and threatened me to put down the picture of Jesus, or otherwise I will be deported back to Africa. Because so I was really discouraged. I was thinking, should I go back to Africa? But then I felt something inside of me saying, well, they could take the picture out of your walls, out of the wall of your room, but don't allow them to take him out of the wall of my heart. And
Mm.
so that is what helped me to survive, because later on I didn't know when I would go to the university I would be forced to study atheism, science,
Mm.
to use scientific arguments to argue that there was no God, and to study communism, and to study Leninism and Marxism and all these doctrines that will make you to recount your faith in God. But because of that encounter, that I should not allow them to take him out of my heart. So what I would do is that I would study the subject and the books, and I would just give them back in the exams what they were giving back to me without allowing them to to influence my mind and my belief.
Yeah, that's quite a story. So, um, so did you start your church after the fall of communism? Is that when you kind of started it straight away, or did you return to Africa, or?
No, what happened was I kept on meeting, but this time it was now underground church. In the former Soviet Union, even though they didn't have churches officially, but they had underground fellowships and like gatherings. So I started having underground hiding from the government and from the KGB, and we were having maybe just 4 or 5 people meeting together secretly. Then later on, we came across the Russians. They were also meeting underground, and so we joined the Russian Fellowship, and we started to have underground secret meetings. But then, while we were doing that in 1991, 1990, 1989, 1990, Gorbachev, you remember Mikhail Gorbachev? So he came on and started introducing perestroika, glasnost, and this was supposed to open the door of freedom for the nation, and that began to take place, and that is when we began to really get. So instead of going back to Africa, I finished my master's degree in '92, and I stayed back. But from '86, I was in the underground church till '89. Then from '89, we started going out to start churches and with the Russians, and so after with my engagement with the Russians, then I moved from. I used to be in Belarus, in Minsk. Then I moved from Belarus in 1993. I moved to Ukraine, and that was when I moved there to work as a journalist, actually, because I studied to be a journalist myself, and but I started the church in '94.
Okay, wow. Okay, jumping forward to today, do you sort of know the demographics of your church? You know, are they mostly, formally Orthodox Russians and Ukrainians? Do you have much the community at your church?
No, we are most, maybe I would say 90% of the people in our church are Russian, Ukrainian, Jewish, just Russian speaking, Ukraine speaking people. Maybe we
Yeah.
will have about 5% foreigners, and maybe
Are they
about
normally, are they
1%.
Central Asian, or where do they tend to come from?
Foreigners will be coming from Europe, America, European countries, but
Okay,
we have maybe 1% or 2% that are Africans.
okay, cool.
So 99% of our church, or 98%, will be Caucasians, white Europeans.
So you don't really see many people from Central Asia
No,
coming to your church?
not too many people from Central Asia. We have some. We have people from Vietnam, China, but not too many. Not as many as Europeans. And but also, if you want to talk about demography, is it former communist people? I will say maybe 70% will be former communist or young communist before,
Yeah.
and maybe about 15% will be former Orthodox, and
Yeah.
but mostly people were unbelievers. Most people didn't have affiliation with God when they came to church.
Okay, cool. Um, okay, and I know that you've written a lot of books.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm just trying for my first, and I was looking at your list, and I was like, damn, I'm never going to get near you. Um, but I suppose I'm quite interested. So you wrote about the role of the church in national transformation, and I know you have had some involvement in politics in the past. So I just want to get your thoughts on what the role for church leaders is in secular politics.
Well, first of all, I I don't really want the church to be united with the government or the state anyhow.
Yeah.
Because I live in Russia here, and I know what brought about, one of the reasons that brought about the communist revolution, the socialist revolution here in 1917, is also because the state and the religion, the Orthodox Church, were like mashed together into one. And actually, the Tsar, which is the king, used
Yeah.
to be the head of the Orthodox Church.
Yes.
You know, how could that happen? Well, so that's what they used to have, but they used to be very well connected. And it's one of the reasons why when the communists came, they didn't just do political revolution, but they also destroyed the churches and killed the ministers because they saw them as one thing, one and the same thing. However, even though there must be a division between and a separation between the church and the state, I, however, believe that as Christians, as an individual, I cannot separate myself from my faith, and no individual could separate themselves from their belief system, and because my faith forms my worldview, and it's the same. I'm the same as my value system and my worldview. So I believe that individual Christians should get involved in politics, and individual Christians should promote their values, just like gay people promote their values, just like secular people promote their values in politics. So also, I believe individual Christians who are believers should have the freedom and the liberty to bring about their principles of honesty, integrity, truth into politics, and that's what we've done here in Ukraine, and that's one of the reasons why we participated and played a lot of role in the Orange Revolution that took place some years ago in Ukraine here.
Yeah, for sure. Um, okay, and what about globally? Do you have any views? I know that there is, some pastors in Nigeria are really interested in sort of re-evangelizing places like the United Kingdom and the United States. How do you feel about sort of the majority world starting to try and re-evangelize the first world countries?
Well, I'm very positive about that because that's exactly what I'm doing right here. Because,
Yeah,
it's never used to be like this that a black African person will be leading the largest evangelical church in Europe. And if not the largest church in terms of Orthodox or Catholic or Anglican, but when you talk about evangelical church, yeah.
yeah,
So, but still, I think it's a reversed mission. Yeah, Europe has become a mission field, and and Africa, that used to be the mission field, now is sending out missionaries
yeah,
to the former countries that used to evangelize them. So I think it's a good thing because a lot of the West is becoming secular, and so a lot of also the world is becoming a global village. A lot of Africans are now moving to different countries of the world, and they are more active in their faith. They are more enthusiastic about Christianity now than most Europeans are and most Americans are. So, what my position is that is a positive development. The only issue that I have with the brand of Christianity that is coming from Africa is that, unfortunately, a lot of these African churches are just gathering together with their local African people. They just
yeah,
meeting together with fellow Africans. So I don't get that. I don't understand that because why should I move from Africa to Europe, to England, or to America, or to France and just be meeting with my fellow Africans when the demography of the country is not only Africans, it has all these nationalities. So that is one of the challenges that I have with my fellow Africans when they move to Australia or to move to Europe or when they move to America. I think that is one thing they have to review. Now, the second challenge that I have with the churches that are moving from Africa to Europe is that too much emphasis on money. And that too much emphasis on money is, I think, is one of the errors of the American gospel that went to Africa. And I think Africans were so gullible to have accepted that version of the gospel that is called prosperity gospel. So when they now preach the kind of gospel that they bring back from Africa is more of prosperity gospel, which I'm not really comfortable with. I'm more comfortable with the mainstream, historical evangelical gospel, which is more of service, which is more of building communities, which is more about fighting for justice and for truth, and which is more about empathy and doing humanitarian outreaches to the society. So that is the kind of gospel, the kind of Christianity that I buy into. But what is coming from Nigeria right now and from most African countries, they are not too much involved with the everyday life of the nation, of their host nation. They are just about meeting on Sundays and then, doing the religious stuff, but without going out of the four walls of the church. I have a problem with that. And that is why, even though that is a safe way to do church for Africans, because, they have a lot of issues with racism, discrimination, and, when you stay in your corner, you have less problem. But when you come out of your corner, like myself, like I've done, you have a lot of issues. You have a lot of problems. Like me, I was involved so much in building a politically better Ukraine and in trying to influence the country politically and economically, and it landed me into trouble. And I started having political problems such that, because this still largely is a corrupt society, so they can set you up easily. So, they try to do that to me politically, to compromise me and, to accuse me of things that have not really happened. But people outside might not know what's going on. But people in Ukraine know it's a political dispute. It's a political fight. Because we had 35% of the parliament of Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine, were members of our church. 35%. And then the mayor of the city of Ukraine, of Kiev, was Leonid Chernovetsky, a member of our church as well. So that was a lot too much influence for a black man coming from Africa to start the largest church in the country, the evangelical church, and then to have 99% of the people going there are people from here, and more than that, and to also have political influence so big that 34% of the parliament will be 35% will be going to the church. And that also, I became a security threat. So that all led to all kind of, accusation. I mean, can you imagine? Some people came to our church, started a business, and we lost. All members of our church lost a lot of money. And then the government came and accused me of doing that. I said, how could I set up a church 20 years and build it for 20 years and then rob my church? It's crazy. I thought you were going to defend me, but you turn around and made me I'm the victim, but you made me the perpetrator. So, but it's a political thing. So, but for Africans, most Africans, what they do is they just stay in their corner. They stay with their people and they do their own thing, and they stay inside the religious walls. And they don't bother to come out of the religious wars into the political sphere. Or when I go to America, I'm really surprised that there are Africans there, because you don't see Africans. You see African Americans, but you don't see the first generation of Africans who are coming to the country and who are starting the churches, because they just mind their own business. But if we really want to do a lot of good to the society where we are coming to, we should do the same thing the missionaries did to us when they were coming to Africa. They brought education, they brought enlightenment, they brought religion, but they also brought a lot of social services and a lot of things that really changed the African society. And if we want to reintroduce Christianity to the European society or to America, we must be engaged. We must engage the society as well. We must be able to address the issues of drug addiction in America. We must be able to address the issue of race in America and discrimination. We must be able to address the issue of lack of justice. All societal evils and all societal ills, we must be able to address them with the message of Christianity and of Christ. And that is when Christianity has life in itself. If we are not bringing solution, we're useless.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to make notes as I go along, just because we're talking about so much. Okay, cool. So just theologically, I guess I'm just interested if you have any views. Like in the United States, the Seven Mountain Mandate is becoming quite popular, as is ideas that we're in a spiritual warfare. Do you have any views on those sort of particular doctrines?
Yes, I believe so much in the Seven Mountain doctrine. And what we do here, we don't call it Seven Mountains, but we call it seven spheres of influence. We try to influence different spheres of influence to see different spheres of the society. So we encourage people to go into politics and bring the values of the kingdom of God there, to go into the economy, and to go into spiritual church life, to go into basically the same seven spheres of influence. We call it seven spheres of influence, but they call it seven mountain. So I really believe in that. Yeah. The only problem I have with the American version of that is I think they are not engaging enough. They try to engage in politics, but apart from politics, I don't see them in other spheres of influence too much. I see them talk about it. I see them
Yeah.
talk about it to Christians among themselves, but I don't see them actually being in the field and being in the
Yeah.
forefront of all those spheres of the society and bringing change. If you come to Ukraine today, and it's going to be very difficult for you not to see people from our church in every sphere of the society.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I think that's more or less all the questions I had. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Well, talking about Pentecostalism all over the world and the Pentecostal movement and the reverse mission field that is going on, I think, it is logical because Jesus, who is the founder of the church and who we are all following, had said, the first shall be the last, and the last shall be the first. It's like Africa has been last in a lot of things, and in the gospel, it is the last continent to embrace the gospel. And it's no accident that today that last continent that used to be known as the dark continent is now pioneering a lot of mission work in Christianity from Africa. So I actually could imagine that a lot more Africans are going to be in the leading position of, taking the gospel across the world. They used to be the last. I think there is going to be a day when they are going to be the first. So I think it's just logical looking. I mean, at the coming from the mindset and values of Jesus that those who used to be the last are going to be first eventually.
Yeah, for sure. And do you sort of teach or do you have any views on the end times coming? I know again some pastors here really feel like we're moving towards the end of days. Others are sort of more concerned with the here and now. Do you have a particular view or direction that you take on that?
I think we shouldn't worry about that at all. I
Mm.
think we still have a lot of work to do to spread the message of Christ. And I think in the next 50 years, for sure, we are still going to be here. So I'm not in a hurry.
For sure. Cool. Well, yeah, that's all I really had to ask. I'm hoping to try and get over to Kiev possibly later in the year, but it all just depends, with everything going on in the world at the moment, if I can get on a plane and get in. So
That would be cool. Maybe you could meet some of our people here and see some of the work we're doing and get to see the church. That would be
I'd love to.
nice.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm allergic to the cold, so I don't want to be there.
But
I won't
then
be.
then you don't want to come at the end of the year. You probably want to come next summer.
Yeah, I'll see how I go, but anyway, I'll let you know if I can make it over because I'd love to come and see your church.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll be happy to have you.
Wonderful. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Please get back to me on the host issue.
Okay, will do.
Thank you so
Thanks very
much. God bless. Bye.
Likewise.
Yeah.